Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Entertainment Expansion. We're your hosts, Tyler Callahan and Mike Ferrante. Mike, how you doing this week?
Well, I'm chilling, you could say.
That was a pretty pregnant pause there.
Well, what can I say? I was so chilling I forgot I was what to say. I was just that chill.
Deep chill. Okay. Well, we don't have a movie to talk about this week. That may change in a few weeks, depending if theaters actually open up in the States. But Hollywood, they are going to come out of this coronavirus almost a completely different industry. Three main changes happened over the past week or two, and we're going to offer our quick thoughts about them. Each one of them by himself, not that important right now, but 2 to 3 years, a year from now, when we're past coronavirus, it could be something that changes how we watch movies and where we watch movies. So the first one we'll talk about is studios having to release movies internationally before America. Before now, the only time this really happened was Marvel movies being released 1 to 2 weeks before in Europe before America. But now, Warner Brothers, for example, they need to push out Tenet. They're doing a bunch of European countries before it goes to America in select cities, because again, New York and California, two biggest markets, are still closed. This does kind of have the risk of piracy, but I think more so that now Hollywood is now looking at, okay, well, they look at South Korea as they opened up. They now have two Korean hits. People are going to cinemas. China is starting to get back up on their feet, and Europe has been doing all right. So for one country to fuck up, they're cutting their losses and they're doing that. We'll see if Tenet can manage a couple $100 million without America initially. But I guess the question I have to you, Mike, about this is, do you think this is the right move? Like, should they keep waiting for American market to open up, or should it be like, we just have to wait?
Unfortunately, it's kind of going to be, it's a smart business move because it's better to make some money than no money at all.
Yeah.
Because right now, no one knows when America is going to be fully open and when American citizens are going to feel comfortable sitting in movie theaters. So it's definitely a smart move to release it in other countries that kind of have their shit together. But at the same time, like you said before, you run the risk of piracy. Now, We all know we're not going to promote any piracy channels here, but we all know streaming services on jailbroken Fire Sticks, that the minute it goes live in another country, you're going to get it on that application.
Yep, no, that's definitely a risk. So far from what I've seen in Europe, the one thing they've done to try and prevent that, at least for now, is to only show the dubbed version. So that new Russell Crowe movie, Unhinged, came out actually 2-3 weeks ago in Germany, but only dubbed in German. So you can get probably a pretty decent leaked copy, but you'd be reading English subtitles the entire time. So now, with Tenet, for example, I think that's out the door. They're releasing over the next 3 weeks, China, Middle East, half of Europe, and even America in some cities will get Tenet. So there will be a half-decent regular copy online. So, but Tenet, for example, that's because they had to, because Christopher Nolan would rather kill himself than see that go on VOD.
Yeah.
So, but we're finally getting other movies. The New Mutants is finally coming out. We're actually going to get that in America first in some cities before Europe. That movie's been delayed about 10 different times. And then, looks like AMC and Regal are going forward with reopenings in the next 2 weeks in limited selections. Theater capacity is 30%.
Makes sense.
So I think September will be a big month for theaters, because at that point now, America's open for the most part. Europe's open. You're getting new movies. What's the actual box office look like? And I think of the other two issues we're going to talk about, this is the least important, right? Like, if it's only 1 or 2 week difference, it's not a big deal for us. And it sucks for people like us that have behaved during quarantine. Because let's be honest, if everyone behaved March, April, May, we'd be fine.
Yep.
South Korea handled their shit perfectly, February, March, and they've been going to movies for the past 2 months now. They've been going to bars, they've been going to restaurants, no problem. But that's because they can, walk around knowing there's only a couple dozen cases around the city, not possibly thousands. Next issue, Disney. Disney made a move that I think was unexpected. Mulan is going to Disney Plus. However, it is not going to Disney Plus for free. You need to have Disney Plus, and then you need to spend $30. Now,
Now,
it's
I ask you a side question here, Tyler. People
yeah.
who are uninformed, that $30 that you're going to spend, are you going to own Mulan, or that's just a one-time rental?
It's a gray area. So, what the $30 gets you? Think of this movie as a Xbox game, the game with gold, or the PlayStation Plus. So $30 will get you Mulan. You can stream it as many times as you want, 4K. You can download it on your tablets, on your phones, on the go through the Disney Plus app. You only own the movie as long as you keep Disney Plus. If you cancel the subscription, you don't have access. So you own it's tied to your Disney Plus account. So
Okay, so
it's a lot like PS Plus, where if you cancel it, you don't get those games you got for free.
yeah. Now, can you reactivate the same account if you
I
wanted
believe you
to?
can. I believe if you reactivate the account,
You would, and then you would still own that.
as far as I know, yes, but I guess someone will have to test that out. As long as it's
Shot not.
reactivating the old account and you're not making a new one.
Okay, because
Um,
this stuff, good information, people are definitely gonna want to know.
yeah, no, you do own it as long as you keep Disney Plus. That's not an issue. 4K is good because not all services offer 4K, but this is interesting because in some countries they are still showing in theater. China's the big one. They got the approval. Countries in Europe will be getting it, but America won't be, at least right now, because theaters aren't going to show because it's on Disney Plus. So I guess the question here is, do you think Black Widow goes to Disney Plus?
Ooh,
The
I
reason
don't
I
know.
say this, the CEO did say this is a one-time thing, but you know, here's
I
what happens
guess
when you develop a new part of a service to, because it's just streaming. When you add a purchase section, you don't just develop all that for one movie.
yeah, it's definitely a good question. I definitely don't have an answer for that because who knows? I mean, granted, I don't have the stats on me how much they spent for Black Widow to make and how much they spent to make Mulan.
As far as I know, Black Widow is a standard Marvel movie, so that should be around 200 mil.
They might want to wait for that one to get as much money as possible.
I think Mulan was at least 150, if not more. So they're almost comparable. I think for Black Widow, it depends on how successful this is, because there are 60 million subscribers right now. So that's their audience for this. Up to
Yeah.
60 million people could rent it. But I also think, how does Tenant do domestically when it's released in September? I think that's a key sign. Tenant is a $200 to $300 million grosser in America. If that only gets say 50 million after 1 to 2 months, I think Black Widow goes on Disney Plus,
Maybe.
at least for select markets. But then, kind of feel bad for theaters because what are they going to say?
I mean,
Fuck you, Disney.
who knows? I mean, Disney's a pretty big player in the movie industry. They own a lot of rights to a lot of the big blockbusters right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's wise for theaters to, do what they did to Universal and do a little ban for a little while.
Oh no, the MC CEO came out because they had their earnings as well. He was like, "Oh no, you think we'd be upset, but we're not. We understand Disney." He's like, I was
Yeah,
thinking, you are lying. You're a lying motherfucker.
you understand Disney because Disney brings you huge numbers. Universal, on the other hand,
Mm-hmm.
it's hit or miss with them. Like, what big numbers has Universal really gotten lately?
Um,
Besides
Honestly,
Hot.
Jurassic World. That's it.
Yes. So meanwhile, Disney's putting out big hits several times a year.
Mm-hmm. Do you really want to shut off yourself from Marvel, Star Wars, and the Avatar movies whenever they come out?
Yep. And plus, any of the Disney remakes they decide to do or anything tied with Disney, no, they're
Mm-hmm.
not going to shoot themselves in the foot.
So, I mean, I kind of feel bad for theaters because it's been set up for months. It's Tenet and Mulan that brings the theaters back to life, and right at the last second, Disney's like, yeah, some theaters.
Yeah. I mean, we're still going to get 10 in theaters. There's no way no one's not going to have
No, we're
that in
getting
theaters.
Yeah, no, we're getting Tenet, but like, a lot of theaters were hoping to get Mulan, and as far as I know, they can air it if they want to. They just have to work out a deal with Disney, and I'm sure Disney would love to show it in theaters, get extra cash,
Oh, yeah.
but they can't because on their principle of you not respecting the theatrical window. Because if they break it for Mulan, other studios are going to be like, well, you broke it for Mulan, you can break it for us.
And then they'll probably have the same conversation that we're having now. Well, they're Disney. They can kind of do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Like when you guys start releasing blockbusters several times a year and making everybody millions of dollars several times
Mm-hmm.
a year, then we'll talk. But
Did
like
you see Disney's schedule last year? Can you do something like that?
right now, we're talking about Universal, like specifically, right? Universal still does. Did they do Halloween?
They did Halloween.
So right now, their big upcoming movies is whatever Fast and Furious is next, the new Halloween movies.
New Minion movie.
The what?
The Minion, like
Yeah.
Despicable Me.
Okay. Yeah. And then, uh, you got me lost on my train of thought here.
Again, yeah, Jurassic World, Fast and Furious, and Minions are the
Jurassic.
biggest franchises.
Yeah. Compared to Disney, which has multi-billion-dollar franchises.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
So it's kind of we're not
And
gonna.
Warner Brothers is like DC and Harry Potter, but they keep fucking those up, kind of. So they could be $1 billion hits.
They could be, but
Yeah.
let's have our Warner Brothers discussion for a later date and time. Let's
Uh,
move on.
all right. Yeah. So the final one, which I think is the biggest one, depending on how theaters shake out financially after this, is the Paramount decree has been overturned. Since the 1940s, there was a law on the books that blocked two things. It blocked block booking, which means studios would go to theaters. You can say yes or no to this set of movies. You have to air all these movies when they come out on your screens. You can't just pick and choose. And it also stopped studios from owning theaters, and they had to divest and sell them off. The Trump administration and the Department of Justice over the past few years felt that it was outdated and should be overturned. This week, a judge agreed, saying with how technology has advanced and the rules have changed, in order for competition to happen, this needs to be overturned. So it's done. There is a sunset period of 2 years, so it won't be official until sometime in 2022. But this paves the way for Disney to buy theaters. Yes, they have the El Capitan and stuff, but basically studios are allowed to like buy one or two. They can't buy chains.
Yeah.
So like Netflix just bought one, the Egyptian in Hollywood. Now personally, AMC and Regal, I don't think they're going to be bought. They're owned by international theater chains. So
Yeah.
unless they sell them off specifically, they're fine. But your local mom and pop theater, they're at risk. They are,
Yes, they
like
are.
you mentioned, Universal. If Universal had the money, because they have Comcast money, they can go around the country, start buying them up, turn them into Universal cinemas, and only play Universal movies. Imagine all the screens showing Minions 3. What a nightmare.
What a nightmare, but their sales might do pretty good Universal because,
They,
a lot of
they might.
times it'll make a more competitive movie going experience for these companies. Because if you have, like, besides like AMC, when big movies hits, yeah, those big movies are in a lot of theaters. But for smaller movies, if they're be able to be shown at, more times throughout the day, more people will be able to get tickets for the times that are suitable for them. You know what I mean? Like, let's say, I don't know, let's use John Wick 4, for example. Let's say John Wick 4 wasn't going to be as big
Mm,
as it probably will be, and Lionsgate had their own theater. They would be able to show John Wick in a couple, you know, staggered. You'd be able to see it like on the hour almost. That'll increase the sales instead of having to wait. Well, you got the 2 o'clock show, then you got the 4 o'clock show, then you got the 6 o'clock show, or even more spaced out.
but doesn't this fall apart if people just don't show up to watch the movie?
It
What
does.
Like I agree with you. If you max out the showings, that there is a chance of increasing revenue for the movie. So if it's not doing that well, that's a way around it. But if also, let's say the movie's bad, you know, you can't avoid it. Like you can add more showings to get more people in, but if overall people don't want to go, they're not going to go.
Correct. But then Universal could play a different movie in its place in the various theaters that they now have access to. They're not stuck in one group of, rooms to watch the movie. They can kind of pick around and play. Like, okay, this movie's not doing well, but this one is. We can increase the time shows for this movie and give another 2 rooms to view this movie in. You know what I mean?
No, I know what you mean, but I just feel like the nightmare scenario is a studio only showing their movies.
Well, I think that's going to happen because no movie theater that's owned by like Universal is going to play a competitor movie. It's not going to happen.
They might be open to it if, like a regular theater, they get a cut of the tickets.
Yeah, maybe.
And you also have to think, like, we're around locations where there's a few theaters, so we got choices. You got to think small town America. Let's say they have one theater every 30, 40 miles. What if one of them becomes a Universal only? Right? Now you have to drive out 30 minutes to an hour to see non-Universal movies.
Yeah, I don't think people are going to take that commitment to do that.
I don't think they're going to. And I don't think they're going to be that happy that they have to do that. They need to see a movie like Tenet from Warner Brothers or a new Star Wars movie.
Yeah, you got a point.
I think if anyone makes a move, it's Amazon or Apple. I think they buy theaters.
Yeah, I could see it.
They have the cash to do it. Warner Brothers with AT&T they have a lot of debt issues. They're not in a position to buy anything else.
Yeah, they need to get HBO Max kind of on its feet first.
Disney could probably afford to buy it, but they just bought Fox, which would have been fine, except coronavirus is now milking them dry a little bit. So they need to get their books in order. So I think Amazon and Apple, they can buy theaters, renovate them, then think about it. Amazon Prime theaters. You have Amazon Prime, gets you 2 free tickets a month to go to their theaters. And then because they don't have that many movies, they can have the best seats of the house for their movies, but then also show some other studio movies, so it looks like a regular theater.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be the worst way, and then because it's in theaters, then they qualify for the Oscars. It's a win-win-win. That's one thing I can see happen, at least within, say, the next 5 years. But I don't know. Maybe it won't happen. Maybe all theaters go out of business.
Yeah, who knows?
But yeah, those are the 3 main topics we had. Again, nothing changing immediately now, but over the next few years, they could change. If anyone else has thoughts about theaters, and I would say where theaters and streaming movies are going to, where would they let us know about it?
Well, as always, you guys have a few options here. Number 1, hit us up on Instagram. Feel free to slide into our DMs or comment on our last post. You could hit us up on Facebook. We have access to some of our videos on there. And lastly, you can find us on YouTube, all under Entertainment Expansion. We've got a lot of good stuff that's out already, and we got a couple more tricks up our sleeves for another few episodes.
Yep, that's right. A lot of good content. But that will be it for this week's episode of Entertainment Expansion. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.